And we are back for another ladies' room. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's so good of you to join us. Good morning if you're listening to us online via the Power 95 app or the website or on radio, wherever you are. We appreciate you as always. And of course, before we do anything else, let me say happy International Women's Day to all the amazing women, of course, at home, abroad, wherever you are. Just want to say happy International Women's Day to you. And it's on that premise we have our guest this morning. So let me just give you guys a couple minutes to come on into the room. And of course, as you do, just hit the share button because I think today's conversation is one you'd really like to be a part of. Alrighty, and as we continue to recognize women around the world, we had our guest yesterday from the Ministry of Social Development, Ms. Loris Pascal. Quite a bit of information was disseminated. And again, thanks to everyone who were in the comment section and adding your voices to the conversation. Truly appreciate you as always. Good morning, Rita. Good morning, Christelle. Good morning, Jill. Zilmer. I'm seeing my beautiful ladies coming in the room. Hey, we want the men to join us too, all right? So don't think, okay, International Women's Day, we just gonna sit on the sideline and watch y'all do your thing today. No. We invite you to be part of the conversation, all right? Because this concerns you as well. So come on in the room. Good morning, Karine. Good morning, Zavid. Good morning, Lydia. Marianne. Happy International Women's Day. Good morning, Debbie. And everybody else that's here. So again, I'm just giving you a couple more seconds to come in and share, and we'll kick it off. You know how time goes quickly, right? So I don't want to waste a minute because this my guest is someone who I really, really admire. She's just an amazing human, and to speak to her on International Women's Day is like all that on a bag of chips. So I am so happy to have her today. Texas checking in. Good morning, all folks in the United Kingdom. Good to have you, Narissa. Good morning. Canada is checking in. The US is checking in. Good morning, Jenilyn. Good to have you guys here. Alrighty, so I think we can start there. Thank you so much, Karine. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. I think we can start with what we've got, and then of course we can build up some more by you sharing and inviting your friends and other women to come on into the room. Now, as we celebrate International Women's Day, I think my music is a little too loud. Yeah, so as we celebrate International Women's Day, we pause to acknowledge and honor women wherever they are and whatever they're doing. We honor women today not because they're different or special, but because in many societies and in many spheres of life, women are still not considered as equal to men. So, as we address the gender stereotypes and the inequalities that women face daily and globally, let's not negate our individual and collective roles in this fight. So, whether you're a caregiver, whether you're a stay at home mom, or student, or an educator, an entrepreneur, boss, or an employee, an influencer, a follower, you're fearlessly and wonderfully female. And today, we celebrate all the women and all the women that you are. Our stories are unique, but also very similar, and that's why sisterhood and female friendships and support are so necessary. We find strength in our collective wisdom and, of course, our lived experiences. And all we ask in return is that the world sees us as one half of those who hold up the sky. So I have the pleasure today of speaking with one such blazing female who has not allowed life to define her space. She's a mother, a wife, a lawyer, and recently she added her voice to the podcast circuit. Her podcast, Seon 180, which began broadcast in February, sees her sitting down with men and women of influence who have made their mark in their specialized fields. We have seen her sit down with Farley Flex, a motivational speaker, music promoter, and former judge of Canadian Idol for all 5 seasons. She has also interviewed Shari Warner, a therapist out of South Florida. Her upcoming episode features Grenada's director of hospital services, Dr. Carol McIntosh, as they discuss women's health and the taboos surrounding the female anatomy. So, her website and social media pages promise that her podcast interviews are fun, frank, and fearless, and so far they are proving to be. So, my ladies' room, and everybody wherever you are, I want you guys to join me and welcome to the ladies' room, Power 95 ladies' room, the beautiful, super talented Leslie-Ann Seon. Good morning and welcome again. How are you?
Good morning, Aruna. It's really great to be with you. How fitting to be in the ladies' room on International Women's Day. And I'm delighted to be chatting with you. I describe you as the DDB, the
What does that?
Dynamic Dynamo Broadcaster. So I'm
Oh,
thrilled to be here.
I love that. Thank you so much. And when I saw you once, when I listened to you a couple of times, and even before you started your podcast, I always used to say, you have one of the most amazing voice, and you'll fit in on the radio so good. Something to do with, communication. You'll just fitting so well there. And then when I heard you, I saw the commercials on Facebook, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah, on Facebook, about your podcast, and I clicked in, and I was like, yes, finally, you're out there.
Thank you very much. It's
You're
been a long
awesome.
journey. It's something that I was thinking about for a while. I've always loved broadcasting from a child, obviously because of the exposure to it through my dad. So it's something I've kept always in the background. But he used to say to me, broadcasting is a pauper's profession, so you need to focus on something else. And so for me, it's a reality that's coming to fruition. And we say out of every tragedy there is an opportunity, and this really was born out of the pandemic and being bored and thinking about what do I need to do next. I feel like I'm not fulfilling certain parts of my life. I feel like there are other goals that I would like to pursue, and it's a good time to take the risk and be bold.
Totally agree. And the thing about it is, so many look at the pandemic and all, the negatives and the disadvantage, but there are so many advantages coming out of the pandemic. I mean, prior to the pandemic, we had ladies' room, but we didn't utilize technology the way we are now to speak to practically anyone. Doesn't matter where you are. Most of it was centered around coming in studio. So the pandemic afforded us because we had to continue. We couldn't say, okay, pandemic, we got to shop. No, people were depending on us then more than ever to keep the communication lines open. Keep their minds active. You're on lockdown. You want to tune into the radio and hear something going on. So out of that pandemic, I think it really really showed up some amazing the talents. You had people who worked somewhere before, now they're self-employed, and there were so many opportunities that came out of the pandemic. And I think it was in some instances good, and of course in other instances bad, but for the most of part I think we made the best of it. So for the benefit of those just tuning in or who may not be too familiar with you, before we jump into the meat of the matter, maybe you can just tell us a little bit more about yourself and of course a little of your background.
Sure. Well, like you said, I am Leslie-Ann Seon, host of a new podcast series called Seon 180. I am first and foremost a mother. I am also a wife and an attorney at law. I am proud to say that I am the principal of an all-female law firm. And so we're loving it today that on International Women's Day, it's just estrogen in the house. So to all the ladies out there, I want to say a happy International Women's Day to you. So I think sometimes perceived as just being a very sober, serious, stoic person, but I'm really not. I have quite a funny, mischievous side to me. I love to laugh. I love my fete. I love my jab. I love my carnival. I love my cricket. There are many sides to Sion, and hence the reason Sion 180, because it's showing the other side that most people don't get to see. And I'm enjoying the opportunity to not just show that other side, but to bring the voices of the Caribbean to our audiences wherever they may be, hearing from us ourselves about what matters to us the most.
Fantastic. Now we've seen you making contributions, your contributions in many different facets of life. So on this day, March 8th, what does International Women's Day mean to you, and how do you see yourself as helping to advance the cause of womanhood?
Yeah, well, I think it is important for us to remember that for me, every day is Women's Day. Today is just specially significant because it's recognized as such. And so we take the opportunity to pause and just focus on the women and our girls. And that's very important because historically we've come a long way. We didn't have the right to vote, we didn't have the right to work, we didn't have the right to an education in many parts of the world. And today we've advanced and accomplished a lot of things. And one of the most important things for me is something you just said about the importance of female friendships, about the importance of supporting women in all aspects of their lives, personal and professional. You know, we want to lift our sisters up, we want to lift our girls up. And so for me, this is a continuation of my philosophy in life, which is to share my knowledge and experience with young people, with other folks, with women, with girls, and to enable them to accomplish their dreams and not be set boundaries and restrictions by others, but to push it and forge forward, just like you do in your studio in the ladies' room. You push it forward. I love your funky hair. Your hairstyle says it all. It's part of your personality. Um, and that's why I enjoy whenever I have the opportunity to listen to the ladies' room, Aruna, to connect with whom you speak and the audience that gets to listen to you and your guests from day to day.
I want to sidestep for a little bit. You mentioned a while ago about, heading an all women's law firm. And of course, we spoke about sisterhood and lifting each other up. What sort of challenges would you say you have dealing with that, with women in an only women's space? What is that like on a daily basis?
It's quite interesting because, you know, for us women folk, we're going through different moods. We have temperamental changes. You know, there's lots going on with us all at the same time. We're juggling multiple tasks and so on. But, you know, in the end, we support each other. We can read each other. And we can understand when we need to give support sometimes, when we need to step back. And for me, it really hasn't made that much of a difference. I'm not an easy boss, I will easily confess. And so, you know, working with me, I am sure poses a challenge for my staff from time to time. But at the same time, I try to be fair and I try to give them the support and the encouragement to excel as much as possible. Like I say, I'm very focused on sharing my knowledge. I'm not selfish with it. I like to see them, you know, exceed their expectations. And I like that when they leave here, because I don't expect them to be here forever, that they can hold their own in any part of the world and say, you know what, Sion has taught me a couple of things and they've held me in good stead. So we get along great.
Fantastic. Was that something you designed or it just happened to fall into place that way?
It just happened to fall into place. I have to tell you, I have tried, you know, to bring the guys on board. We haven't been as lucky. When I was working in a previous law firm, I was the first lawyer to hire a male secretary, and to this day, he was one of my best legal clerks and legal secretaries. So we'd be happy to have testosterone around to bring some balance to the environment. But it is what it is. We embrace it, and I'm super proud of it.
Fantastic. Someone in the chat is saying they always associated your voice with seriousness. So your fun personality in the podcast is quite different and enjoyable. So I want to talk a little bit about the podcast before we get into other stuff. Um, what did you design that podcast to be, to show the other side of you, as compared to your daily life and how we see you? As this person says, as you see seriousness, you're like, okay, don't mess with that lady, you're not about to get away easily if you do. So what was the whole reasoning behind it?
Yes. Well, it had to be designed to be different from how perhaps the public perceives me. You don't want to bring across too much of that serious stoic side. It has to be a different side that engages and captures the audience. And also, because of the kind of topics that I wanted to cover, I wanted the forum to be conversational, myself and my guest just chatting about very serious issues to very comedic issues, but getting a message across to the audience. So it was designed deliberately that way with the production team as to how we approach topics, how we approach guests, what kind of guests we want to have on board, what's the audience that we're targeting. And for me, It part of it was also risky in the sense that here I am exposing this other side of me. Will it take or will it not take? Will people see that this is really just a genuine attempt to inspire, inform, motivate, educate a Caribbean audience? And you notice I keep saying Caribbean because
Yeah.
I'm a committed regionalist. I am a West Indian for the West Indies. And I believe that this archipelago is so geopolitically important that we have to remember that there is strength in unity. And so, not because we're divided by seas, we're all one people in the Caribbean. That's what I like to do.
Now, with this podcast, how would you say you're helping to shape the conversation about gender stereotypes and gender inequality?
That's an interesting question because some of the topics that we will be taking on are what people would describe as hard topics. They don't always think that women can deal with areas of finance or certain aspects of medicine, science, technology, etc. And so I am looking forward to a lot of my chats with my female guests, and it's not just female only, approaching these topics and getting into these hardcore areas with a female perspective for a wide audience so that it comes across that we're not limited by what society feels we are only capable of addressing or speaking about. It's got to be out everything. We're a potpourri, you know that. We're doing multiple tasks, juggling all the time, prioritizing. So bring that across in a podcast forum, 30 minutes. So we're not belaboring the time that is so valuable for most of our listeners. And as I always say, you can listen to the podcast while you're cooking, while you're driving, you're going to work, your lunch break. You just slip it in.
Mhm. Now, I want to narrate, come back to the celebration of today. In your opinion, what are your thoughts on women, and I'm speaking specifically to women in Grenada on this rock of ours,
Yes.
or advancement, where we are now? What are your thoughts?
Well, honestly, Grenada's women have come a very long way. But uniquely, we've always had some historical firsts. Remember, the first female governor in the Commonwealth was Dame Hilda Bino. The first female permanent secretary in the Commonwealth Caribbean was Louise Rowley. So we've charted some historical first already. So it's just for us to continue. What I think I would like to see more of is our women engaging themselves in a way that they are constantly retooling and educating themselves to do better, to move beyond these boundaries, to set examples to others, to mentor, to share the knowledge and the experience, to be productive and ambitious, to show initiative. This is what we need in the country to go forward because, as a small island, developing, largely a poor country, it's the resources of our human capital that are most important in building the nation. And women are by nature nation builders because we start from how we build and construct our home. We are largely matrifocal households where we are single parents. We are the only adult in the house and we're taking care of all these different things. So for me, it's about not just getting attracted to the distractions, but keeping your focus and understanding that you have a role to play no matter where you come from, no matter your demographic, no matter your wealth or lack of wealth. You can do it, but you have to believe in yourself, in your own power, and then take those steps to grasp it and to succeed and excel.
Fantastic. I want to just bung away for a minute again because um, you are a mother, and like you said not so long ago, you're a mother first. Now, a while ago, I happened to see a status, well, somebody responding to a status on Facebook. Not too sure if you're familiar with an incident that has been circulated in this affair with a school child and a police officer.
Mm.
And one of the that comment said, basically, the reason why this particular young man is behaving in that manner is solely because of parenting and the fact that the parent failed him, so that's why he's behaving in that particular manner. Do you subscribe to that?
I don't think you can just blame the parent alone, but certainly the parent will have to take some responsibility. You know that old saying, charity begins at home? Really, your training begins from the home. And so, what you impart to your child, what you exhibit to your child, stays with that child. And so, it is very essential that from the basics of childhood, parenting plays that critical role in how we interact with others, how we handle conflict, how we resolve disagreements, and how we interact with authority. But the incident is unfortunate. I saw it on the television news, and I have to tell you, on both sides, there were elements of dismay. Because likewise, our police should have the proper training to know how to handle these situations. At the end of the day, you're still dealing with a minor, but then you want to understand what is in the mental being of that young student that he would act out in that way. What is going on around him? Because it signals something else. And it signals a topic that we discussed on the podcast about mental health and how kids have been suffering a lot during this pandemic. The lockdown, the online schooling, the inability to move away from screens constantly because that's how you're going to get your schooling, the lack of supervision in the household because you're alone, because parents have to go to work. So there is a myriad of issues that could have resulted in the child acting out in that way, as disappointing as it is. And I'm sure the parent isn't proud. But we have to help and support rather than spend the time criticizing, rather than spending the time condemning. Offer solutions, see how we can improve each other. That's the focus for me.
And being that we're celebrating International Women's Day as well, there are so many women who are single mothers raising sons. And I often have this conversation, and I'm like, on Father's Day, you'll hear women saying Happy Father's Day to me. And my one of my thing is, you can't teach a man how to be a man, you know. You're a woman, you could quicker mold your daughter because you understand what she's going through, you understand the female body, the changes, so you're in a better position. But we have a lot of young mothers raising sons, raising young men into young boys into men. Do you
Yes.
think that's one of the things that's contributing to the breakdown somewhat?
Absolutely. I think sociologists will tell you in the Caribbean and in Grenada, this is a pivotal reason for a lot of the breakdown that we have. While we are uplifting women and celebrating women, at the same time, to some extent, we're marginalizing our boys and our men, particularly when they're growing up in households without a male role model around, without the benefit of a father or a present father. Because sometimes you can have fathers in the household, but they're not present, right?
Mhm.
They're sort of absent. They're leaving the parenting to the woman, to the mother. So our boys also need care and attention. They need to have that male counterpart to help guide them as well, because there are certain things that as a woman we perhaps can't impart to a young boy. And so, yeah, I agree with you. That's a part of it.
I would love to pick your brain some more, but I know our time is going quickly. So, while today is International Women's Day, of course, the month of March
Yeah.
is a Women's History Month as well. And there's no doubt that Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley will be recorded in the history books. I just love her. She's just an amazing human. And she was recently in Grenada and spoke passionately about the need to direct our attention on climate change, especially for us in the Caribbean. And in keeping with the theme for this year's Women's Day, what are your thoughts on the health of the planet as relates to climate change?
Well, Prime Minister Motley, I admire her tremendously. I think she is the trailblazer, quite frankly,
Yes.
in terms of leadership and guidance and her whole approach to how she governs. She raised some very important issues about the climate and the state of our climate. What amazes me is that there is still this feeling out there that this is not credible, that our planet is not suffering as a result of man's destruction to the planet. And the more we see the proliferation of natural disasters, the hurricanes that are becoming more and more fierce in the Caribbean, the floods that are hitting Europe and parts of Asia, the typhoons, the tornadoes that are coming in North America at very unique and unusual times, this is enough for any sensible person with a grain of common sense to understand. We've got to do something about it. So I am totally with those who are advocating for us to take action now, to stop the speaking and to take the little steps that we need to as individuals at the micro level, and then our state governments at the macro level to tackle climate change. And these could be very small, whether it is removing plastic whether it is the conservation of energy, whether we're moving from fossil fuels to wind and hydro energy and geothermal energy. All of these are steps that we can take. So I'll tell you, I'm very concerned about climate change, but Aruna, to be honest, in the context of the current environment, I'm more concerned about man's destruction to man. And for me, I have extreme solidarity for the women and girls of Ukraine who are suffering this onslaught by a superpower that is intent on expanding territory at any cost whatsoever. And so, even before we get to climate change, we have to be concerned about what is unfolding. It is not as far removed from the Caribbean as we think. Ukraine is being treated as a pawn. We have been treated as pawns before. Remember that. So
Mhm.
I think we have to put the planet as a priority. And it's not just states and governments, but it's all of us as a community together.
Someone is asking, are we doing enough in Grenada to help save our environment?
No, we're not. I see far too much litter around the country, far too much plastic. It's like it's a joke. We think that our streets are dumping grounds and garbage bins, and we have to do better than that. I'm going to go back to the charity begins at home. When we're at home, we're not throwing our things all over the room and in our kitchens and in our living rooms. We try to have waste paper baskets or dustbins. It's the same way we should treat our country. We're driving along the countryside. We're painting rocks beautifully with the Grenada flag colors. I love it because I'm a patriot. But when we look 5 yards down, we've got all this rubbish on the street. No, we need to do better than that. And it's those simple steps that we can start with our kids and train them so that when they become adults, we have a much better, cleaner, healthier looking Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique.
I remember as a child going to school, we had that song, Bits of Paper Lying on the Floor. It was almost like
Yes,
a single day.
yes.
Head, you couldn't get that song out of your head. So
No,
even
it was a theme song.
to throw something, that song immediately came to your mind, and you'll pick it right back up. So
Yes, yes.
I think there's more to be done. Now you mentioned, of course, Prime Minister Motley. Who can you say are some other women that you most admire, and why?
Good question. I tend to admire very strong women, women who've had tremendous impact. So I will tell you, it's anyone. I would say Mother Teresa would be one, Rosa Parks, Michelle Obama, Indira Gandhi, Golda Meir, very strong women who've had tremendous impact on their communities and the nations and the globe. Just by the example that they set, the sacrifices that they made, the focus that they had, the challenges that they faced to get to where they were and how they've accomplished it. I mean, Michelle Obama is perhaps much more recent, and we look at how she retooled herself, played second fiddle to her husband, a woman who's brilliant, Harvard-trained attorney, took such an onslaught from the media for her womanhood, for her race, and showed us that when they go low, you stay high.
Mm.
And that message has resonated with women all over the world. And she is one of the shining examples. And I think Rosa Parks, because of civil rights, that she opened up that civil rights movement by a very demure, gentle movement of not moving from her seat. And that just is the message we want to send to our women, that it doesn't have to be a war to bring about change. Small steps can do it. That's what we need to think of. Small steps. Doesn't have to be the grand maneuver as we see unfolding now.
Amazing message on this International Women's Day. Now, what else can we hear? What other topics can we expect to hear on your podcast? And of course, how can people access it?
So you can access it by going on the website, sion180.com, or on our Facebook page, any of the platform streaming sites, Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, etc. Upcoming topics, very interesting. The female anatomy with Dr. Carol McIntosh, our hospital services director, how we're unlocking the taboos, how we're finally embracing the word vagina and not cringing from it. What we need to focus on for women's health in particular, and that was to coincide with International Women's Day. So that's upcoming next Sunday. And we're also going to be talking about your financial health. And we'll be speaking with a charming and engaging young up-and-coming Caribbean financial educator out of Barbados. And she'll be sending us some very practical, pragmatic messages, which is what we want. We wanted to connect with the audience so they know that you've got to manage your money now, otherwise you're stealing from yourself in the future. And that's just part of the tips that we'll be handing out to our audience in the upcoming episodes.
Fantastic. So again, sion180.com and also on Facebook. So you'll be able to look at those already gone and, of course, upcoming ones. Anything else before we go? Final word on this International Women's Day? Maybe a direct message to women all over the world hearing us?
Thank you so much for having me, first of all, Aruna. Happy International Women's Day to you, all your female colleagues, and to all the women of Grenada and the Caribbean. And wherever you may be listening in your audience, happy International Women's Day. Keep the flag flying high. Be proud of who you are, embrace it, and continue to excel and exceed.
Fantastic. Thank you so, so very much. It was a pleasure, and I hope we can do this again. Maybe we'll throw in another topic, but would love to have you back on the show. Appreciate it. And again, happy International Women's Day to you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure being here.
You're welcome.
Be safe, everybody.
All right. Have a good one.
Thank
And that about concludes our ladies' room this morning. Thanks everyone in the room. Thank you so much for appreciating what we do here daily. And on this International Women's Day, just wanted to speak with someone who made, has made such a huge impact on our Grenadian society. An amazing voice indeed, and just to give us a bit of encouragement. And I hope it was received in that manner. Good morning, Andrea. I did not see you earlier on. Good morning, Tamasha, Valma, Naficia. Good morning, Monica, and all the other women. Good morning, Della. Happy International Women's Day, Jackie, Bibi, everybody else. Thank you so much for checking in the room today. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, we want to center our conversation around, the incident that occurred, that the video that's circulating, and we want to tackle it from, a professional standpoint, not just everybody, a sort of clinical standpoint. Someone who deals with children daily, who understands young men, and also trained in that area to speak on it, because as it is, everybody's going crazy right now, pointing fingers. But honestly, I don't see this as who's right and who's wrong. What I see is a call to action. What I see is something that requires immediate attention, because if we don't nip it in the bud, it will get crazier. On Saturday, there was an incident in St. Andrew, which resulted in the death of a young man and another one hospitalized. Again, violence. Yesterday, we saw the video with the police officers and the young man. And I saw another one. And I think, sometimes we're reactive and not necessarily proactive. And as much as the police try, there's way more of us than there are of police officers, so they can't be here, there, and everywhere. But I think that going forward, getting children off the streets should be of utmost importance. If you were to just, and it's something I speak about all the time, the minute you go around the back of the building on the stones, every single day you will find students in uniform, males as well as females. And I'm not talking after 12, 1 or 2. We're talking after 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, in my day, I'm trying to figure out how do I reach my mother's house after 6 without having some prior excuse or letting her know there is something in the school that I have to do, or something, some extracurricular activity that requires me being that late. You couldn't just be walking around the town of Grenville. Adults, police, principal, they will literally drag you up and you have to go home. But it's almost like after school, you're having to compete with school children. They're in the mall, they're just hanging around town like there's nothing to do at home. There's nobody at home responsible for them. They're just all over the stones at the back of this building every single day, males as well as females. So I think I saw an officer yesterday running a couple of them. So I hope it will be a regular thing to have more police out to get children off the street. You should not be hanging on the bus terminal. You should not be hanging behind the NIS building. You shouldn't be on the hospital steps. Wherever else they're gathered, or they're gathering daily. We need to get them off the street, send them home. No loitering, hanging around town. So we want to have that conversation tomorrow and see if we can make sense of what's going on, because it is a cause for concern. It is a cause for concern. So I hope that you guys will join me tomorrow for that. So I'll see you then. Thank you so much, Beacon Insurance and Western Union, for making our program possible today. And we'll catch you again tomorrow, same time, same place, for another show. Yeah.